Hello everyone! It's time to talk today about my experiences a weekend with the Fuji X-M5. This is just a first impressions video, but I feel like I have some pretty good input on this camera after owning it this amount of time, considering all the other recent cameras in the EDC category that I've owned in the last few years. These are cameras like the Panasonic S9, the A7C II, the Ricoh GR3, and the Leica Q1. Starting off, I just wanted to say that I did buy this camera with my own money, believe it or not, in 2025. So I have nothing to gain in saying this. And when I purchased this, I did buy it with the kit lens. And this is a lens that I figured I would sell off quick as any other kit lens that I've owned before in the past. However, I'm not too sure I'm gonna do that with this one. And let me explain why. I just got back from the Chain Lakes Loop in Mt.Baker Washington, and this is a little over a 5-hour hike that I did just yesterday, and I thought this camera worked really well in a lot of different ways that fit my particular use cases. But I'm going to get into the positives right now and why I think this makes for a really good trail camera for doing any sort of photography or videography while hiking, or just doing day trips where you can only pack just a small amount of items. So for the lens that I ended up using for most of the trip, it was my Voigtlander Ultron II with this ND filter. And I really like full frame lenses, especially from like an M mount, because they're really small, and when you're using it on an APS-C camera, you're using the middle of the image circle. So you're getting really high quality images, even in the corners when shot through something like these Leica mount lenses. And yeah, this is really small. I mean, this lens here weighs less, I believe, than the kit lens. So with it being a 28 millimeters on APS-C mount, around 41 or so f2 lens, this is really great in the field and very portable. And then another lens that I use besides the kit lens that's currently recording me is this Carl Zeiss Jena Sonar, and this is a 135 millimeter lens f4 full frame, and I was using this KNF Concept M42 to Leica M mount adapter, and then just switching between the Voigtlander Ultron and this. So now we've gone into what I was using on the hike. While I was using this small tiny Voigtlander lens, I passed by many people that were carrying full-on full-frame kits. And I was a little surprised to see very few people using APS-C cameras. Now, I love full-frame cameras, and that's mostly what I shoot with, but for hiking purposes, I really think that this camera is really great in freeing the load from your body, especially if you have to carry something like hiking poles. I just don't see being able to carry like 1.5 kilograms on a strap like this. It's just gonna weigh you down so much. I mean, you could also use backpack straps, but I do find that if, say you have just one camera, that it really creates like a weird imbalance. So I found that this XM5 lens has been really practical doing outdoorsy sort of things as being an EDC. Just having on this strap with this lens, I could barely even feel it throughout the day. And that's the first time, besides using the Ricoh GR3, where I had a camera that really didn't burden me in any sort of way by carrying it. Now, I had a few extra lenses like this and the kit lens, which added a little bit more weight, but in my backpack, I couldn't really notice it all that much. And if I were to do the hike again, I probably would have just left this at home, leaving me with just the kit lens, and really it's not much weight at all. I think you could also get away with just the 15 to 45. I've watched quite a few reviews, some being better than others, where people have used this lens, and it's pretty convincing even as a main lens. I think especially for something like video where sharpness isn't like your overall #1 desire. I mean, even for a lot of people for photography, it's not, but I think it's really good as a video lens. And dare I say, there were times where I was reviewing my footage and I wasn't exactly too sure whether or not I was using the kit lens or the Voigtlander lens. And that was really surprising. And this lens is ultimately best used around the 25 to 35 mark as a mid-range sort of option. If you use a little bit more like a prime, then you'll get much better results than trying to shoot it at 15 or 45. That's something you really got to know, and the limitations when using this power zoom. For this hike, for the first time ever, I tried to really lean into film simulations, shooting RAW at the same time, and then also JPEG Fine. I found a film sim called Portability, and this is on Fujifilm Simulations, and I thought it really looked quite nice, some of the images out of the camera, and I was really happy with the results that I got, and I shared quite a few of them straight out of camera. And that's not something that I typically do. I usually, like, I would say that on my X-T1, I very rarely or ever shared any JPEGs, but I was really happy with this overall film simulation. And I'll leave up how you can set this as well on your camera, and I believe this just works best with the X-Trans 4 sensor, not the newest X-Trans 5. And here are the settings now. Despite hearing a lot of creators online say that you're physically unable to switch between photo and video easily, it simply isn't true. By using the C modes, you can switch between the two, although it does require quite a bit of knowledge on how to properly use the system to make it work. One thing that I found was pretty interesting with this was the battery life. I think the battery life on this did quite well. I used one battery in 5 hours of hiking, stopping non-stop to take photos and videos, and 6K video, and then just shooting lots of photos. This is with the screen brightness turned up to 3 out of 5, and it lasts all day. I never had to cycle on to my second or third battery. So I think for normal usage where you're not just running the video for as like I am right now in studio environments, the battery is going to last quite a while out on the field if you're just stopping your clip and doing short clips at a time, like I think most people are. So that's something that I found was surprising for me. One thing that was really cool with these batteries is that I was able to use 2 of the batteries that I had purchased for my X-T1 on this. So they all take the same MPW126D battery for Fujifilm, and I'm sure any Fuji shooter will have several of these lying around. So it's nice that you can still use these, and yeah, they work really well on this tiny camera. One of my favorite things with this is the video being able to shoot 6.2K, and you're able to crop it however you'd like. If you want a vertical video, no problem. If you want a horizontal video, you just leave it how it is. And that's something that's really nice, and a lot of people will appreciate the overall flexibility of having this. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I finally hit the overheat shut off level, and this is with the camera set to shut off on high heat only, not the normal safer setting, and it is 25.5, you might not be able to see that, 25.7 degrees right now. So yeah, camera will unfortunately shut off on you after not too long, unfortunately, when recording in 6.2 in warmer weather. I mean, this is still plenty good enough for doing quick bursts of video, and I don't think it's honestly too big of a issue. However, if you're wanting to use it for a streaming camera or something like that inside, be prepared to purchase an extra cooling fan for this system in order to keep this running. While the file sizes are small, you should know that there are some limitations when shooting in F-Log. First, with F-Log 1, you have a minimum ISO of 640, and then with F-Log 2, it's 1250. So you're going to need a variable ND filter like I have here in order to properly expose your images when you're in high contrast scenes, because otherwise you're going to have to crank your shutter speed up to like 500 or 700 or something like that in order to properly shoot your footage. Going into some of my frustrations and why I think this may not be a good camera for some people. Starting off, obviously, it's the viewfinder. There were a couple instances where I was trying to manually focus this Zeiss sonar lens, which is around, I want to say, close to 200 millimeters focal length, equivalent to full frame. And I did have a bit of an issue focusing that. Overall, this camera is just really easy to drop. As being someone who's already dropped it twice, catching it one of the times, having this grip really will make it nice and easy to hold. And if you're purchasing a 3D printed one like this, or you're making it yourself, it really adds on next to no weight. So in my eyes, that's a big win-win when trying to keep the overall weight down of your camera system. One thing that's going to really affect most people that go to use this camera is just the limited amount of controls that you have and how different it is from any other camera that you own, especially some of the older vintage Fuji cameras with lots of controls. This one has so few, and you really need to learn how to set up like proper macros and use the screen. And One thing that I actually do find works nice with this is shooting manual glass. So say you want to change the ISO, you can just set the front dial to ISO and you're manually controlling the aperture on your lens, and then you can just use the shutter speed dial on the back as a shutter speed dial. So by eliminating the aperture, the need for the apertural dial by using your manual lens, then it makes it feel a lot more like a normal camera that you would typically use. When we're looking at what makes the ideal hiking camera, obviously having the XM5 not be weather sealed is a pretty big deal. And a lot of people would rather opt for something like the XT series, which are weather sealed. However, I think if you use something like a bag like this, and preferably have a weather sealed lens that kind of like pop it out the side there, I think is very doable, and you really won't have any issues in that sense. And it's really up to you whether or not this is a make or break, but I think for me personally, due to the cost of the camera, I'm just gonna risk it. And now this is one thing that I think is probably the worst with this camera overall. Not having the stabilization trying to record video is really tough, and this is even locking it down with it around my neck and having my elbows into my side. Just walking with it at all is really quite jarring to look at, and this is with me trying to be as careful as possible. So you're really not going to get stable video unless you lock it down or you use a gimbal, like say the DJI mini gimbal. The tripod is something you're going to want, and this newer one, the TS05, is really light actually. It barely weighs anything. Originally designed for an iPhone. It has legs here. You put it down, tighten it up, just pull on it there, and then attach it onto the top of something like this. Just lock it down. The 15 to 45 does have image stabilization in it, but unless you're going for that found footage style horror movie content, I wouldn't really be banking on that providing you with any sort of cinematic footage. When it comes to photography, I never found that missing stabilization was too much of an issue. I found that even with my X-T1, you can always just kind of like put your elbow on something or just like really try and concentrate in order to get it down to like 1/30 a second or even lower. I mean, I've been able to get it down to like 1/10 of a second just by being really still. Or, I mean, you can obviously put it on like a self timer and then just rest it down on something, and you can easily get images that way. I really just wanted to kind of share how great I thought it was for what it does well. This is a frustrating camera to use, and if you've never used Fuji before, I'm not even sure you'll make it through the first week before selling it just due to frustration. I really think that if you're wanting a nice portable, packable camping or hiking camera, this is the best one in the industry. My overall experience with the XM5 for photo and video was really great, with me just probably needing to bring this tripod for the video shots. I wanted to see if I could make it work with just the strap and being careful, but I don't think it really worked all that well, and it was definitely giving the found footage horror sort of vibe that I think very few people are looking for in their cinematic content. So I'll leave links for things like this newer TS05 tripod in the description below, and also the XM5. And if you do click the links, I would appreciate if you bought through my affiliated links. It gives me a little bit of a cutback, and I won't have to resubscribe to the affiliate program once again because no one has purchased anything from my links. Which, I mean, it is what it is. This is a small channel, but anything helps. So anyways, thank you for watching. I hope these tips have helped you in any sort of way decide with where you want to go and what sort of setup will work best with you. If you like the video, if you have any questions, leave a comment and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Anyways, thank you everyone. I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.